So on this Sunday, we are wrapping up our Daniel plan. We've been in it over the last number of weeks, and I want to start off the message with telling you a story about our AIDS orphan envelopes. This year marks about the 10th year that we've been having these envelopes given to you on Sundays when you come in, and usually we've been inviting you to put $1 in here. It was in 2006. It was in August. And we were at the Global Leadership Summit, which comes out of this Willow Creek Church in Chicago. And during that summit, Bill Hybels, the pastor down there, interviewed Bono. Bono of U2, kind of this global rock star fame. And on that interview at the Global Leadership Summit back in August 2006, Bono challenged the church to help people with AIDS. By that time, we know that AIDS wasn't just from a certain lifestyle, but AIDS was affecting people around the world. Oftentimes, AIDS was leaving many, many children orphans in Africa, in Thailand, and other places. So New Hope became one of the churches that stepped up, and how we stepped up to do that was we started inserting these envelopes every Sunday into our bulletins, and now we just hand them to you. And we encourage you to put $1 in the envelope every Sunday. Again, part of the idea behind this was that our children can participate. They can put some coins in there. You can give $1 to them, and they would put it in this envelope. And over the years, over $80,000 has been collected with this method time and time and time again. And so in January of 2007, took some of those first Sundays of offerings, went over to a regular trip on Thailand. But on that Sunday, I met for the first time in January of 2007, Brian and Nita Pent Hintz, who were serving over in Thailand. They serve 5 foster boys. And so this is 10 years ago. The oldest foster boy is now in university in Chiang Rai, and it is doing very well. There were two other boys that were about the same age. They just both turned 18. I'm sad to report that one of them is no longer following Jesus. He's kind of doing a prodigal thing right now. Over the last these last 10 years, we were with him many times, knew that he heard about God, knew that he could sing songs. I watched him play guitar the last few times, but now he's gone back to his home village, and unfortunately he's not following Jesus, but we're praying for him. It happens all around the world, not just here, not just there. So the other foster boys are doing well. One's got cerebral palsy. Again, the story is that he wouldn't have been kind of rescued 10 plus years ago. He would probably no longer be on this earth. He's doing well. He's always got this delightful smile that just lights up a room. And the youngest is the youngest brother of the oldest brother that's in university. Some of your AIDS orphan dollars have been going to serve those boys. We also got connected through Brian and Nita Pent Hintz into the Imjai House, which is a group of homes that serves orphan children, and some of the children in there are orphaned because of AIDS. Some of the children in there, sometimes, again in Thailand, there's this abandonment of children. We've gotten connected with the Bay Ministry, and the Bay Ministry people have a number of homes, again, of orphan children, of some abandoned children. So some of your AIDS orphan dollars have gone to serve them. So on this last trip that I was on, we ended up having a meal out with Pastor Alan Bay, who's actually from Canada, has been serving over in Thailand for the last 20-some years. He married a Thai woman, Saratan, and he's got this Bay ministry. He's got a church and a number of these group homes. And so 8 years ago, on one of the trips over there, we went to this group home where there were these 8 orphan girls living in one home. And Sarah was with me on this trip. So 8 years ago, we met for the first time, Martha and Elizabeth. I want to show you a picture of me with Martha and Elizabeth on this last trip. Again, sometimes you have this impression that, because I've told you some of the stories, I've been out to rural villages where there are houses with dirt floors. Not everything in Thailand is third world. There's a lot of first world in Thailand, including mega malls. This was on like the 4th floor of this big mega mall. We ate at a Sizzler restaurant because they have this amazing salad buffet. And so that's Martha and Elizabeth. Here's their story. Elizabeth is doing her internship. She'll be graduating from Bible college. Elizabeth is on the right in just a few more months. Your AIDS Orphan Ministry dollars plus some other donations paid for her college tuition while she was in Bible college of a whopping $500 a semester. Some of you parents, that's right. So some of you parents who are thinking about your child's future college education, no, it won't happen at $500 a semester. But Elizabeth has a fire to her for Jesus. She has what we would call a Daniel Strong kind of faith. Again, Mrs. Bay was saying, as Elizabeth, when she teaches, when she prays, when she sings, there's just a passion about her, and she has gotten some of that from us being able to support her. Marta, in the middle, is finishing up her graphic arts degree, and got to see some of her work. She had some pictures on her cell phone. Yes, she has a cell phone, even though she's kind of an orphan, abandoned child. Elizabeth has had a cell phone too. Elizabeth did not play with her cell phone during our time of eating. Martha did play with her cell phone, took a couple of selfies, checked herself out a few times, looked at some other pictures, kind of like a lot of people do here in America. Cell phones are all around the world. Even if you're poor in Thailand, you have a cell phone, not just a cell phone anymore, a smartphone. So but Elizabeth is also following God, kind of Daniel Strong. These two girls have this strong faith. And they always ask about Sarah, my daughter. Because somehow, Sarah was able to relate to these two girls and the other girls just much better than me as an old man with white hair. So they always ask about Sarah and their Facebook friends, and they told me a funny story that they Facebooked a few times, and Sarah would Facebook them back and that, tell some things, answer some of the questions and that, and they'd have to go scrambling for about a week trying to find somehow to translate her message to the Thai so they can understand it and that. So this is Martha and Elizabeth, your AIDS Orphan Dollars at work. So part of this, to tell you this story, is that we believe here at New Hope that God's kingdom is ever warmly expanding in us, through us, all around us, and way beyond us. So one of the ways that we've seen that happen over these years is through these AIDS Orphan Dollars. Over the last 10 years of doing this, and we're going to continue to do this, over $80,000, $80,000, a dollar at a time, has been raised over these last 10 years, going to serve souls that matter to God. So this morning we're going to wrap up this Daniel plan. Over the last number of weeks, we've been looking at this idea of faith and food and fitness and focus and friends. Again, starting this whole thing wasn't about just food and fitness. It was about this idea of faith. We want to keep serving God with this ever kind of warmly expanding kingdom focus. So week 1, we talked about this idea of faith following together. We don't just have faith for ourselves. The reason that we have faith is that there's all kinds of people before us that have had faith. There's people that have faith today. And so we kind of have this faith following together. And the idea here is that when we looked at Daniel chapter 1, it was Daniel and his 3 friends. They had a faith, and they were somehow better together as they stuck and practiced that faith together. And in Daniel chapter 1, the whole story is Daniel and his 3 friends, they're orphans. They're probably young men, 12, 13, 14 years old. They've been removed from the land of Israel, from Jerusalem, where they were growing up. And more likely, their parents are dead. They've been transported way over into this foreign kingdom. They're learning another language. They're in a different climate. There's different kinds of homes. People dress differently. People eat differently. But somehow they are bright and sharp, and they come under the training of the king. They're going to serve this foreign power, lots of other from other conquered nations. There's going to be young men, and they get to eat royal food, and Daniel and his friends don't want to eat that royal food. They don't want to defile themselves, and so they ask with kind of some wisdom and tact if they can just eat the vegetables for just 10 days. But the whole idea of the food idea comes from faith. So they were faith following together, And again, the story is that they looked better than the other young men that were in the service of the king eating the royal food. And so the person took away all the royal food and just gave everybody vegetables. So then week 2 of our series, we were talking about this idea of food following together. Again, the whole idea of food following together is that there's times that we eat alone. Again, most time I'm probably eating breakfast alone. Maybe that's your practice too. But for some of the wonderful things about food is when we eat together. Kind of this idea of food following together. So here in America, we kind of eat some of the same foods. I go to Thailand and there's some interesting foods to eat, some great foods to eat. Again, they always have all kinds of amazing fruit. Thailand has 2-3 growing seasons depending on some of the foods and fruits in that. The joke of Thailand always is that they have 3 seasons, hot, hotter, and hottest. And so when that kind of warmth and that things grow up, Brian was telling me, we went to their home and that, and he's planting all kinds of things, that when you plant a banana shoot, in 1 year, it grows to 10 feet and it's producing bananas after 1 year. All kinds of varieties and stuff. So there's something about eating together. So we had a great meal together with Martha and Elizabeth, Mr. Pastor and Mrs. Bay, and Brian and Nita Pent. Went to MJ House, had a great celebration meal there. So there's all kinds of, you have birthday celebrations, anniversary celebrations, holiday celebrations. Friday night, got back from Thailand, and our youngest daughter, Sarah, and her husband are moving out of their first apartment. They're buying a house, but there's a month between moving out of the apartment and getting into their house. Guess where they're living? So we had a celebration meal at their apartment, and after the celebration meal, we started hauling all their stuff out of their apartment into our basement. And Friday night weather was not nice at all. But anyway, that's what we did. So there's just this idea of food following together, having these feasts. And again, we know that there's just this abundance that we have here. There's abundance in many ways over in Thailand. But a part of all of that, this idea of food following together, is how can we use this food and this nutrition, not just for ourselves, but to have the strength and the energy to serve. That's what I'm always thinking about. How can I do these kind of practices, health practices, to be able to serve? Again, when it comes to this idea of food, one of the things that we get over and over again, I want to help us and help myself for as long as we can, because I don't think we're ever going to realize the wonder of the food that's presented to us in this meal that we just received. Smell the body in this bread, the blood in the wine. There's a power behind that. There's an abundance behind that. Again, when you think about some of the meals that have most delighted you, how is it that this holy meal of communion can be a delight to our souls in realizing I didn't have to purchase the bread or the wine. I didn't have to prepare it. I didn't have to put all the power behind it and in it. But it's given to me as a gift. The wonder of who this Jesus is. So there's food here. And some of the images that we were looking at that Sunday when we were thinking about that, there's these images of heaven, of abundant feasts. Again, we won't buy any of it, won't have to prepare any of it, won't have to clean any dishes, but we'll all be together, feasting together. The wonder of food following together. So then week 3 was on this idea of fitness following together, and we were looking at Daniel Strong, and there's this definition, a pursuit of excellence in body, mind, and spirit for God's glory. So we're thinking about this idea of Daniel Strong. We're thinking about the idea of Jesus Strong. In the reading from the Daniel Plan book, if you read with it, they talked about, in the fitness section, kind of finding one word that would sort of help you to define. And the word that they suggested, one of the words was just the idea of move. And just this idea of move. We're not talking about becoming, a marathon runner or some kind of triathlete and stuff. Just this idea of moving. Again, some of you know some of the research, some of the studies that are coming out. Many of our children, they have so much screen time, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's an iPad, whether it's some other kind of video, or whether it's the Netflix and something on the TV. There's all these screen times and that. So what's the idea? How to move? Not to take away the screen time, but how do you get children to move? So that there's this fitness of body and mind and soul and heart. So again, this idea of Daniel Strong in that. So that's one of the words of just move, just take a walk, get up and walk up and down the stairs, get up and walk during commercial past the refrigerator, get up and just move. And the other idea that kind of my one word when it came to fitness was just serving. Part of the reason I want to try to maintain as much physical fitness as I can so I can serve you as a pastor for as long as I can. So many of you have commented on my selfie picture from Thailand. It might have been my first selfie picture ever. I don't play with my cell phone a lot other than doing some other things with it. So I took a selfie picture of me getting ready to go for one of my swims in this wonderful pool that was behind me. And probably almost most of the days that I was there and being able to stay at that hotel, went for a swim for 45 minutes, for an hour. And as I'm swimming very slowly, mind you, but I'm moving, I'm praying. I don't know how many times I prayed, Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit. And go through many of your names. Go through praying for the staff and the teachers and the children and the families of New Hope Christian School. Praying for many of my pastor friends, their names and their churches, and just praying and praying and praying. I'm going to miss swimming outdoor in a pool for a number of months. I don't swim too much when I'm back here. And I know that many of you are feeling very, very sorry for me right now that I no longer will be able to swim in an outdoor pool for the next number of months. But again, just fitness, to be able to serve. To be able to serve. And we said in that Sunday that there is an aspect that sometimes we probably miss when we read through a story about Daniel. But Daniel had a fitness strength to him. There was an idea that Daniel strong, not just in faith, but Daniel strong in fitness. We referred to the story that when he was a very, very, very old man, that's when he spent the night in the lion's den. How did he physically just survive that night in the lion's den? There's something that must have been a fitness to him. And then we also were saying, how about Jesus? Have we ever thought about this idea that Jesus has a strong fitness to him? Again, to me, as I think about Jesus and him serving and going to the cross, there's a fitness strength to Jesus. And we're following this Jesus. Following Jesus. Then week 4, before I left for Thailand, was the idea of focus following together. And again, we had a number of research sections that we shared from that week reading in Daniel Plan. Here's one of them that's up on the screen. It says, research shows that being consistently grateful will have a positive effect on your health. God designed us in such a way that gratitude promotes healing. Gratefulness actually helps your brain work better. So again, we in that Sunday we did a praying exercise together and a thanking exercise, kind of in line with this idea of the research. And we talked just briefly about stress and sleep. And then yesterday on my cell phone, checking the emails and stuff, Apple News, get a subscription to them, and every week, once a week, they have this Apple News, and it's kind of a summary. One of the articles that I ended up reading was an article, I think, out of Time Magazine, and it was on the latest research of sleep. A bunch of Harvard scientists and researchers, a number of other researchers from around the world and that. And again, over and over, all the research is showing that those of us who are Americans and think that somehow we can survive and get more accomplished on less sleep, there's just a foolishness to it. It is not working at all. So again, to be Daniel strong, to be Jesus strong, to be kind of this idea of focus strong, and couldn't recommend getting sleep. So in Thailand, I was I'd go to bed at 9 o'clock, get up at 5, do a number of study and prayers and praying, and go have a breakfast, wait for a while, go out for a swim, and spend the afternoon working and reading, and then going out at night to have dinners, to go out at night to visit the different ministry sites, because again, we're working with a lot of children. They're in school during the day, and going to bed at night and doing the same thing, just getting that sleep to be able to serve better. Again, I would encourage you to get that kind of sleep. And then on that Sunday also, that we talked about this idea that Jesus has a focus on you. Much more than us having a focus on Jesus. Jesus has a focus on you. Right now, he's got a focus on you. Yesterday, whether you thought it or not, he had a focus on you. A week ago, a month ago, a year ago, he's got a focus on you. He's got a focus on me. Again, a part of knowing that Jesus has a focus on me makes me want to have a little bit of focus on him. To have a focus of praying, to have a focus of following, to have a focus of serving him and thanking him. So last Sunday, as I was gone, I heard great things about last week's worship celebration, but it was the idea of friends following together, encouraging friends to follow together. Again, if you were here, you watched this baggage skit. There's parents, there's authorities, there's friends that kind of at times say things to us that can put some baggage on us, and we can get weighed down. And again, encouraging friends helps us to receive that forgiveness. Encouraging friends helps us to point our lives to Jesus, so that all that baggage can fall off and we can live following this Jesus with friends together. So as we wrap up this deal, living the lifestyle is this last Sunday. And how do we start taking some of these next steps together? Daniel plan's coming to an end, but the practices of the Daniel plan obviously don't have to come to an end. We want to encourage you to keep having Daniel strong, Jesus strong faith and food and fitness and focus and friends and this idea of following, and that we'd all be better together as we take next steps together. So the lifestyle, how do we get to the lifestyle? I want to look at the story of Daniel in a couple of chapters and see if we can apply some things that will help us to keep following this God. So from Daniel chapter 2, we read this in the opening 6 verses. It says this: "In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king said to them, 'I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means.' Then the astrologers answered the king in Aramaic, 'O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it.' And then the king said to the astrologers, 'This is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me.'" There's a number of verses that follow, and they kind of go back and forth. And then here's what we read as we pick up the story in verse 12. It says, "This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact, just as he did in Daniel chapter 1. He asked the king's officer, 'Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?' Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went to the king and asked for time, so that he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. They all prayed together. And God gave the answer to Daniel. And then Daniel praised the God of heaven. And I want us to kind of consider these two verses what we could call lifestyle verses. They're as true today as they were true almost 3,000 years ago. And you know they're true when you think about it. We read this: "Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He sets up kings, and he deposes them. He sets up kings, and he deposes them. He did it back then. He's still doing it. We live in a pretty hot time right now in our country. We have a president that a lot of people don't like, and a president that a lot of people do like. So there's a lot of anxiety in our country right now. He's the president for the next 4 years. He might be a president for another 4 years after that, but he won't be after that. We know, as you think around the history of the world, England has had a lot of great kings and not so great kings. Russia has had some horribly wicked people and some not so wicked people. China. So again, there's a part that this is a lifestyle verse. This is a worldview verse. We follow Jesus. In our opening 3 songs, we were singing about how he is a king that is reigning forever. And he is. Daniel knew it. We can know it too. We can be Daniel strong in that kind of faith. And then at the end of Daniel chapter 2, the king, after he hears the interpretation, hears his dream, and then the interpretation of the dream, the king even professes kind of a strong faith. He says, the king said to Daniel, and he's not a king that would really know this God, but somehow he realizes, surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery to me. So again, there's just this Daniel strong faith that he has this lifestyle and this worldview, and he just serving this king, knowing that this king he's going to rise and he's going to fall, and God is still going to be God. Daniel watches that happen with Nebuchadnezzar. He watches it happening with his son, and he watches it happen with the next king and the next foreign government that he works for with King Darius, when the lion's den thing happens. So one more story from Daniel chapter 4. Again, it's Nebuchadnezzar, and it's another dream, and King Nebuchadnezzar this time tells Daniel the dream. Daniel interprets it for him, and it happens exactly as he interprets it. Unfortunately, this time it affects the king himself, that this king, and it doesn't happen for like a year, but the king ends up becoming kind of mentally unstable and living a very, very crazy kind of lifestyle for a while. But then as the dream was interpreted, he comes back. And here's what we read in Daniel chapter 4, picking up towards the end of the chapter. It says that at the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven. My sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. Again, just as Daniel had interpreted, my advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne, became even greater than before. But now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just, and those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. This foreign king, this king who's not from Jewish descent, who's this king who's not from faith descent, but he somehow has faith in this one true God. So we're about to enter into the season of Lent. And the whole idea of Lent is that somehow we'd have this idea that Jesus, humble, following together. That we'd be humble following this Jesus together. So we can do that by eating right together, moving together, focus, praying and thanking together, friends encouraging one another together. So again, it's all about more than just Daniel strong together. It's about Jesus strong together. Jesus strong together. It's a worldview. It's a lifestyle. It's knowing that no matter what happens in our country and countries around the world, Jesus is Lord. We follow this Jesus. We're going to spend a whole lot more time with the King of heaven than whatever king or president here on this earth. following Jesus strong together. So again, one last invitation to our Ash Wednesday service. We have always a wonderful service, a moving service. We'll have ashes put on your forehead, receive communion, sing some songs. We're going to move into the book of Job, following the idea of our Lent is going to be God's path to wisdom through suffering. And I'm looking forward to spending Lent with you. And as we continue to follow God together, we're going to be praying for God's kingdom to be warmly expanding in us, through us, all around us, and way beyond us. So if you would, let's stand. The music team's going to come out. And again, we kind of sang some really peppy songs at the beginning. We're going to sing a really peppy song here at the end. And this is kind of a Sunday here at the end of February. Even though you had some really nice weather, winter came back. This is our kind of kick winter in the teeth Sunday. And so we're going to go out with a big celebration. The children might want to get out into the aisles or come up front somewhere. It might be a dance kind of a tune. And I think there might be some bubbles or something that might happen. So let's pray. So, Jesus, the wonder of who you are King forever. And so, Jesus, we want to follow you. So thank you for this Daniel Plan series. Thank you, Jesus, for making us Daniel strong. Thank us, Jesus, for making us Jesus strong. May we follow you. May we follow you. May we follow you together. Together. And see what you do in us, through us, all around us, and way beyond us. We ask and pray these things, Jesus, in your name. And all agreed and said, amen.